Enslaved Odyssey to the West is one of those games I will never forget. It's a very fun, simple and good game, however that's not the focus of this video. I want to talk about the ending, which is probably one of the most intriguing endings I have seen in the last decade and will haunt my mind for the rest of my life, but in a good way. But before I go into more detail on that statement, a quick spoiler warning. I will be spoiling the whole game here, so if you haven't played the game, I highly recommend not watching further until you have. If you have played the game or you don't want to, or don't give anything about spoilers, then of course you can watch further without any problem. So this is your final chance to click away and avoid any spoilers. You're still here? Good. Now let's delve into the ending of Enslaved Odyssey to the West. In Enslaved Odyssey to the West, we follow two characters, Monkey and Trip. The two meet after they both escape a slaver's ship, however the meeting conditions is not the best for one of the two. While Monkey was knocked out after the impact of the escape pod, Trip placed a slave headband on him. She rigged the headband in such a way that Monkey is basically bound to her now. He has to follow her every command at all times, and if Trip should die, he dies as well. She promises Monkey that she will remove the slave headband once he helps her return safely to her village. We can all agree that the situation they meet in is not the best. They just escaped a slave ship, crash landed into the ruins of New York, and one of the two is forced to do whatever the other commands. To make matters a bit worse for them, but more interesting for us, is that their characters are complete opposites. In the whole game we play as a monkey, and right from the start of the game it becomes clear really quickly that his actions are mostly based on impulses and he rather shoots first and asks questions later. An attitude that shows that he spends a lot of time in the wasteland, but also hints that he might spend a lot of time alone. Trip is the complete opposite of this. Her approach to deal with things is ask questions first and to come up with a plan. She knows her way around tech and tries to take full advantage of that ability in every situation. Yet she's also a fish out of water in the wasteland. Her body language shows she is afraid of everything and lost in the current situation. That is probably the biggest difference between her and Monkey, which is very logical as we found out later that she's always lived in a walled off village, safe and protected from the wasteland. Now, looking at what Trip did in her current situation, it's only logical to disapprove of it. We don't know who Monkey is or how the wasteland works, yet we can all agree that enslaving someone for your own cause is morally bad. And Monkey's reaction to this situation is very understandable. Fighting against injustice, oppression and enslavement is part of the human instinct. But isn't doing anything and everything to survive not also part of the human instinct? I would say yes, and I would consider that Trip's actions were exactly that, trying to survive. If we push morals to the side for a moment and look with a rational eye to the situation, you could even argue that of all the choices Trip could have made, she made the least worst one. She could have left Monkey behind or killed him while he was unconscious, or worse. Trip knew that she had no chance to survive in the wasteland, but she suspected Monkey could, and by forcing him to work with her, she could get back home. In other words, again trying to survive. I still disapprove of her actions, yet I do find them to be more understandable. But even Trip herself shows that she doesn't like her selfish action and that she is very uncomfortable because of it. Trip and Monkey might be off on the wrong foot here and are each other's opposites, but that actually makes them a great team. And as the story progresses, they inevitably become friends. While Monkey is bound to Trip and has to follow her every command, she actually avoids commanding him. Instead she asks and when needed even trusts him. And while Monkey at first isn't happy with the situation and treats Trip rather rude, he does soften up to her. Though some things are still rather rocky between them. At some point on their adventure they find a fish tank which survived for thousands of years because the fish tank is an enclosed ecosystem. Trip uses this fish tank as a metaphor on how her community lives and survives. The village is completely self-sustained, meaning that everyone can stay in the village and never needs to leave it. She speaks with pride and excitement about it as her father designed it, but she also sounds very hopeful and claims it's proof that mankind can survive in the wasteland. Yet Monkey sees it a lot different. He has been around for a while in the wasteland and has seen these kind of villages before, and their demise was always the same. Over time, these villages become targets for the slavers and their robots, which always resulted in complete destruction of the village. Monkey points out correctly that the same is going to happen to her village, even stating that the process has already been started as Trip was taken during a raid on her village by the slavers. Yet Trip, with all her knowledge, stays naive in this situation. Ironically, in this hopeful moment, the fish tank that she used as a metaphor for her village and the proof that they can survive gets smashed by a robot, which clearly should have been a red flag for her. During the night before they reach the village, they have a really nice moment together. Trip keeps going on about her home, but when she asks where Monkey is going after this, he makes it abundantly clear that he has no home to return to. But when Trip offers him a home in her village, he doesn't give an answer. He knows there's a big chance her village is doomed, but also knows that if he would word this suspicion again, it would just be a rehash of the discussion they had at the fish tank. There is no way Trip would believe him and change her mind. If Monkey would again say what he thinks happened to the village, the tension would rise rapidly in anticipation of arriving at the village, as Trip would be more than happy to prove Monkey is wrong about what he said, but also how he sees her village. Personally, I think Monkey tried to protect her, as you can clearly see Monkey struggle with himself as Trip talks about the village. When she offers Monkey a home, something that he doesn't have and might want, he completely closes up as he knows this is a loose promise. This proves to me that he's trying to protect someone he cares about, a friend, which is something good. He does disagree with Trip and she knows this, so bringing this up again would worsen their situation. But there are arguments to be made that it's also bad what Monkey does here. Trip holds on heavily to what she believes and is not open for the argument Monkey makes. He could or should keep trying to convince her so that she would be prepared for other possible outcomes. Yet personally I would say Monkey did the right thing, even though morally I lean towards disagreeing with him. Monkey's reasoning why the village is doomed is very logical, and from Trip's reaction to his words, very possible. So convincing her would have prepared her and saved her some pain. And I think that is something you should do. However, it would come with a very high cost, and here I would argue that in the end could do more harm than good. That is why I think letting Trip live in her own reality that the village is alright and that Monkey is wrong is the better choice. Even though I think it's kind of bad not preparing someone for the possible worst. And here we are again, just like in the beginning of the game, where a choice that is made is morally debatable, but still very understandable. And while it holds evil, it's again lesser evil. When they arrive at the village, the writing is on the wall. At this point, Monkey tries to make Trip see reason, but also be there for her, yet it still doesn't work. We do see her lose her usual self as she tries to cope with the situation. When the truth finally dawns on her, she even acts on impulse, rushing into the city center right into danger, leaving Monkey behind, which again is unlike Trip. And now for the first time it are Monkey's actions that are more thought out and less impulsive. He tries to stay calm and reach out to Trip, and it's like their character attributes rub off on each other as they spend more time together. Monkey even takes this idea of attributes rubbing off on each other a step further. When Trip thinks it's all lost, it's Monkey who acts naive but also hopeful and suggests that there must be survivors. It's the push that Trip really needed to think clearly and not lose herself again, but unfortunately Monkey's hopes were in vain. Everyone in the village is dead and Trip lost her home and father. Personally, I see this as the turning point for the both of them and where the characters more or less switch permanently. Trip swears to avenge her father and the village, going after the slavers and kill the one that is responsible. She even breaks the promise with Monkey of setting him free just so that he has to help her with this personal vendetta, which is very unlike Trip, and it's something that I wouldn't see the normal Trip do. That Trip would ask for Monkey's help, not demand it. Yet she lost her home and basically her whole life in an instant, which is a very traumatic experience and makes you deal with things differently than you usually would. If she would have set Monkey free, there's a chance he might not help her, or worse, she could lose the only thing that she has left. I would still disapprove of her actions as they are rather selfish, but I think we can all agree that her actions are very understandable. And this time Monkey reflects this in his answer towards Trip when she asked Monkey about the whole situation. As a friend, he is there for her, and while her choices might be questionable, he stands with her and tries to help her wherever he can. Trip says that Monkey sees everything simple, but in reality, he, just like the player, understands what Trip is going through and the choices she makes. However, killing is never the solution, especially not for the problem Trip is going through right now. Though the game has a lot of debatable points, and this is also one of them, because when you think about it, killing a faction called the Slavers might actually be a good thing, as it might save more lives in the future. After this moment we actually get some alone time with Monkey and with an old friend of Trip called Pigsy. Here he shows a lot of care for Trip, especially in moments where Pigsy shows barely any empathy towards Trip's situation. In a short amount of time, Monkey actually came a long way. He's not the dumb nut musclehead that we know from the start of the game. Yet Trip, on the other hand, became more like that, taking more risks and fixating on getting her revenge no matter what. Now she is the one that kicks down doors and starts blasting before asking questions. Which of course at the end becomes even worse, but she does start to notice that Monkey really cares for her as a friend. Though of course there are more hints that there's more going on between them than just friends. Near the end, after an intense fight, Trip and Monkey have a moment together where she admits that enslaving him was wrong, unjustifiable, and that she didn't have the right to enslave him. While her actions were debatable throughout the whole game, it's clear that she knew what she was doing to this point was wrong and feels really sorry for it. And this is why I would not consider Trip to be a bad person. Yes, she made bad choices, but they were the least evil of them and still felt really bad because of it. In the end, she turns off the headband and gives Monkey his freedom back, which surprises him. Maybe because he didn't see it coming, or that she barely used that headband against him, making him unaware of it. I think the latter one is very well possible, as she rarely used it against Monkey and almost seemed to avoid using it, as a part of her just didn't want to. Trip here just does the right thing, and for the first time in the game there's no split between good or bad. However, Monkey doesn't want it to be turned off and tells her to turn it back on, which is kinda cute as he doesn't want to leave her and be connected to her, though it's also a bit worrisome, cause you know, the whole if she dies, he dies. Still, it's a very cute moment and a big step for Monkey. I took this moment as Monkey finally understanding why Trip did use the headband on him, something we, the players, already reflected on. However, the hardest choice has yet to be made, which also brings us to the end of the game. The duo enters the pyramid, which is the Slavers' headquarters, yet everything does not seem the way we expect them to be. They come face to face with a man that is fused with a computer, and he tells them who he is and explains what he has been doing all this time. And this is where it becomes even more interesting than it already was, and ultimately leads to a very debatable question that made my moral compass do 360s for days. The man calls himself Pyramid and uses his own memory from before the war to create a simulation where people can live in. From Monkey and Trip's point of view, he enslaves the people that live in his simulation, while Pyramid argues he rescues people from the wasteland. Pyramid sets himself up as the creator of a world where people can live good and happy lives, unaware of what is really happening in the outside world. In other words, having people live in ignorance, which is a very interesting dilemma, and while the game discussed some interesting themes before, it was not on a topic or skill like this. This reveal of Pyramid instantly begs the question, is it good to have people live in ignorance? And to be more precise, is it good to have people live in blissful ignorance? As the humans don't even know that they're stuck in a simulation nor what is outside of it. But it doesn't end there. Pyramid continues that the world where Trip and Monkey live in is a world where they have to fight to survive, while his world is one where you can live. Which is an interesting argument to say the least. If you ask me, surviving is living your life, and those humans who are in the simulation live their lives, but they are living a lie. A happy lie, but a lie nonetheless, and a fake reality. So I would not consider them trying to survive, as they are not facing reality of things. Still, this part is very debatable. However, the fact that Pyramid enslaves these people is not. The people had never a choice in living their lives like this. They were taken from their old ones and forced into this fake new one. They were forced and even are unaware of this fact, which, if you ask me, makes it only more horrible. Monkey also points out correctly that the world Pyramid offers destroys the other one, the real one, which seems like almost a metaphor for how damaging it is for having people live life in ignorance. And from a moral standpoint, you would wake those people up as they need to face reality at some point, like Trip did in her village. The longer someone lives in ignorance, the harder it becomes for them to face and accept reality, so waking them up could cause a lot of problems. Yet, waking them up would give them back control over their own life, which you could consider to be more important. But Pyramid straight up ignores the arguments Trip and Monkey make and instead goes for this next fascinating statement. He sorta challenges Monkey and Trip to see for themselves the world that he offers, but he adds,
"See what they have before you take it away."
Which makes it kind of creepy, but it also seems like he already knows the outcome of this event. Monkey in the end asks Trip to trust him and takes a peek, and while we don't get a clear visual of what he sees, his face tells us enough. At first he seems disturbed, yet it's soon followed by comfort and happiness. But all of that is quickly ended and replaced by witnessing Trip kill Pyramid out of revenge. When Pyramid's body falls dead on his desk, Trip asks the most important question that the game has been building up towards.
Did I do the right thing?
Which is a frustratingly good question. Throughout the game we see choices being made that are wrong but understandable. We can understand and approve why characters make certain choices while also disapprove of them at the same time. Looking at the whole game, we constantly saw choices being made where we could debate about if they were good or wrong, but overall we could always agree that they had some degree of evil in them, even if it was lesser evil. We see Monkey and Trip both make a choice for each other that was just the right thing and had no evil in it, but those choices are very rare compared to the others. Funnily enough, they both made the right choice based on how the other usually approached problems. For us, the player, it's easy to judge Monkey and Trip's actions as right or wrong and approve or disapprove of them. However, this final question shows us, the player, that making these choices is never easy. While we might think that we know the right answer to the question,
Did I do the right thing?
we actually don't. No matter what your answer on this question is, it will be bad. Not because you are incorrect or anything. You probably have the best intention of the world, but there will always be some degree of evil involved in your answer. Which I think is an absolute fantastic way to end your game, and it puts a very big smile on my face, even though I found it very frustrating at the same time. Because again, now I got a question that I try to find the best answer to, with no evil, yet I will never be able to do that, as all answers will have a degree of evil. And even if I find an answer that I would consider to be right, it would not mean it's right for someone else. Right and wrong, good and evil, approve or disapprove, they are all determined differently by others. And even if we can find an answer we both agree on, our reasons behind it are probably very different. We still would approve and disapprove on each other's reasons and see evil where the other sees good. And this is unavoidable, as that is the nature of this question, and that is what makes it so interesting. The game first sets up our reasons and standards for what is right and wrong, good and evil, and then in the end set us up to compare those reasons and standards against each other. I know everyone has their own opinion and they are often different from one another, but not on a level like this, and I absolutely love the way the game sets up this question and how it ends on it. So knowing this, ask the question yourself, did Trip do the right thing? My first answer would be yes, absolutely. You can't enslave humans to a simulation even though they live a happy life in there. Despite that the world is a dangerous wasteland, it's morally wrong to make people live like that, even if they don't know it themselves. This blissful ignorance doesn't seem to hurt these people, but it was destroying the real world. Also, I personally wouldn't want to live in a fake reality, and I wouldn't blame a person from waking me up from such reality to face a harsher, deadlier world instead, as that would be the real world and that is the one I want to live in. I do give my answer a bit of a hopeful twist. With so many people together, there's an increased chance to survive. Tripp's village proved that, and with the slavers gone, villages won't be destroyed anymore. Or at least not by the same threat over and over. Of course, many of these people will have a hard time adapting to the real world. We don't know how long Pyramid was doing this, and as I stated before, the longer you live in ignorance, the harder the fall will be when you are faced with reality and the truth. But of course, even my answer has an evil/bad side. I can imagine some people being homesick as they miss the life that they once had in the simulation. Though we can't know that for sure. Maybe those who wake up have no active memories of the simulation, as they basically were living in Pyramid's memories, not their own. Though a part of me would also understand if the simulation wasn't destroyed. However, this would only come to effect if Pyramid wasn't enslaving countless of people and destroying the real world. Though that last part of my argument is debatable and can really be questioned if it's really true, as humans fought a war with huge robots long before this story took place. They made the world a wasteland before Pyramid even existed, so you can again question, was Pyramid really destroying the world or was it already destroyed by others? Personally, I side with Monkey on this. Pyramid is destroying the real world for a fake one, and is definitely something I wouldn't want. While I see some good intention in collecting the lost life that remains and keeping it alive, it still is forced and enslavement, which is just wrong, even if the world is dying. Personally, I think people should face reality at all cost, and that is coming from someone that struggles with reality almost daily. I do wish from time to time that I could live basically a life that Pyramid offers. I know I would not be really happy because of it, as it's fake, but I sometimes do wish for it. Still, I do prefer realism over lies and ignorance, even when it's used to protect or doesn't actively harm someone. Yet, in the end, the truth will find its way, just like it did here. In the end, my answer to Tripp's question is yes, but I am more curious to hear other people's answers. I did hear a lot of other interesting points of views on this question, even from people that didn't play Enslaved Odyssey to the West. The question can be asked to anyone if presented correctly. But even after a while since I completed the game, I still return to this question a lot. There are so many different reasons to base your answer on, and every reason is its own good reason, and I just want to explore them all. Hearing people's opinion about the ending of Enslaved Odyssey to the West and the question that it asks in the end does tell a lot of someone and how they see things like right or wrong, but also what they experience themselves and how they reflect on that towards themselves and others. So, what would you have done if you were Tripp? Would you have kept people in the simulation or set them free? Don't be shy and let me know down below. I'm really curious to see what choice you would have made and the reasons behind it. And with that all being said, thank you very much for watching and until next time.